could you tell us a bit about yourself and like who you are and what you do?
Okay, perfect. So my name's Shakespeare. I'm a third year student, and all throughout my years of university I have really struggled with loneliness. I have just never really found proper friends, true connections. It's something that I very much suffered with in silence. I didn't bother telling anybody. But my often response I get when I tell anybody that is that I don't look like somebody who struggled. So that really lit a fire in me to try and raise a bit more awareness. And I hadn't spoken to anybody about what I was struggling with until about this time last year. I opened up to somebody that I was on the cheer team with. Turns out she was feeling the exact same way as me, and she lived 5 doors down from me. And I didn't even know that she lived that close or that she was struggling too. So I finally started to see how widespread it was. Did a bit of research, and it's 1 in 4 students that actually struggle with loneliness, but over half of them are too afraid to speak up because they feel they're going to be judged.
Yeah, so you touched on like how 1 in 4 students, British students struggle with loneliness. Why do you think this has become such a significant issue? And like, what's your personal experience with loneliness in university or perhaps before that?
I think some of the biggest things is we're often told that university is the best time of our lives, to expect drinking culture, expect big parties, out every single night, every weekend, and for some people it's just not that way. So I think people can struggle with the most is that harsh reality, realising that that's not actually what university is for everybody. For some people it completely is, and it is the best time of their lives. But for some people, they're put in a flat with people they just don't gel with. They're on a course with people that they just don't connect with. And I think that's the hardest thing, is that people are actually realising it's actually nothing to do with them. It's not their fault. And that was the hardest thing for me to realise. I've seen on my phone all my childhood friends going out every night in their respective universities, enjoying their time. And I thought, why am I sat here with no friends? Like, what is it that I'm doing wrong? But you're not doing anything wrong. That's the hardest thing, is just, unfortunately, you're not going to connect with everybody. And it seems 10 times harder because you're in university and you're expecting to make lifelong friendships. You're expecting to meet those people within Freshers Week and to know, who your bridesmaids are going to be at your wedding. You just expect to find these people at uni. And when you don't, it just hits so much harder.
Sort of also touching on some of that research, UK government looks very deeply into that, and they've pointed out how nearly half of the students who go to university worried they'd be judged if they admitted they were lonely. Why do you think they are most worried, and how do you think you would break that sort of stigma for staying silent?
I think our generation is constantly so worried about everybody thinks about us. Social media plays a massive role into how people perceive us, how we want people to perceive us. So I think people are so afraid to speak up because of the stigma that's around loneliness. People assume that people that are struggling with loneliness, they're sat in the room by themselves. They may look a certain way, and that's who they assume to struggle. So when you don't necessarily fit that stereotype, it becomes 10 times harder to reach out, to speak to people, because you're going to, I felt the same way, that people aren't going to understand. I wasn't sat in my room, I was going out, I was joining societies, working, it wasn't like I was just sat there. I was still doing those things, everything you should be doing, but you just feel like nobody is going to accept it, because it's just not that generally spoken about. And also in the media, so we hear a lot about older people struggling with loneliness, but there's never much representation for students. The students aren't seeing it out there, they're not seeing other students coming forward. It's just 10 times harder to be the person to do it yourself.
How do you think, since you sort of mentioned the social media side, how do you think social media sort of amplifies these issues regarding loneliness?
I think it amplifies them greatly because, like I experienced, sat watching my phone, looking at everybody else, having the lives that they should be. And people use social media to post the very best things about everything. Very few people post what they struggle with. So when you're only seeing people having the best times and having the perfect times, you're only going to assume that that's the times that they're having and at the times that you should be having too. So I think social media just amplifies that image of perfection, and when you're not met with that, it's 10 times harder to want to reach out to people.
Since this is clearly quite a topic you're passionate about, and you started this project called RISE, if I'm correct, right? Could you tell us a bit more, what is RISE and what inspired you to create it?
So RISE stands for Reclaim, Inspire, Shine and Empower. So I started that as part of my Miss Wales campaign because I decided I was absolutely sick of struggling with loneliness, sick of people not understanding, and sick of students not getting the representation they need. So when I started Rise, I thought it would be much smaller than it is, but I am really proud to say that it's gone a lot bigger than I thought. So I work really closely with my student union to hold events and make a way for students to meet a bit more naturally. I really excitedly helped create and engrave a happy to chat bench that's on my students in my campus. I have met all of my local MPs and the two Gemmers that help the Welsh Government, decide the loneliness policies. And what they said is that they understand students are struggling, but because not enough students are reaching out, they can't make the changes that are needed. So with Rise, I'm trying to encourage as many students as possible to speak out, but also show them that this is completely normal.
Okay.
It's more than acceptable to feel this way. You're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. That's like my biggest message, and to like inspire people to speak out, have the confidence, and to do things on their own.
Are there any particular campaigns regarding working with Rise and founding that you want to particularly highlight that you're proud of?
I had an incredible message the other day. So Student Minds is one of the leading UK charities around student loneliness, and they've messaged me to collab, which is incredible. And they do an incredible job on the 12th of March, it's University Mental Health Day. So this big national day where they put loads and loads of effort and resources in to raising as much awareness around student loneliness as they can. And luckily my university has let me help co-plan everything that we will be doing, making sure that all 3 campuses has events on to help all students.
That sounds amazing, actually, to be fair. Because loads of students will be watching this, and if there are students that are watching this right now, feeling sort of ashamed of their loneliness, what advice would you want them to hear?
Don't be ashamed. Understand that it is completely normal. Everybody at some point is going to struggle with loneliness. There is nothing wrong with you, but don't be afraid to sit with it. Don't be afraid to just accept, you know what, for now, I don't have these people, but don't let that stop you doing the things you love, you know. Don't let it stop you going out on your own, going for food on your own, doing those things, because there's one thing being alone, but there's another thing being lonely and not living your life. You can be alone and still enjoy your life. So that's my biggest thing, is enjoy the loneliness, enjoy your time alone, because at the end of the day, like, you can only really rely on yourself. So if you invest in yourself, you're going to enjoy far more. And the connections will kind of come from there, and it will be surprising who you meet when you're putting yourself out there on your own.
That was perfect. That's all I've really got. But I thought, do you guys have any other questions you want to add on, or?
Well, maybe because a lot you've spoken about is what we should be doing in universities, is that we do see a lot of support in, especially in primary schools. But how do you think, especially people moving from sixth form to university, what kind of the early steps they can be doing to kind of help in the early stages of loneliness, because especially like during Freshers Week, a lot of people in the new flat, they don't really know how to cope. And like we have some systems at university like helplines, and we also have like kind of meeting groups. But how would you encourage people to reach out? So lots of people will suffer in silence.
Oh yeah.
So what's your take on that?
That's really interesting. I think my biggest piece of advice is to not be afraid of reaching out. Your university has people in place that want to support you. They have people that are there, mental health teams, the student union, but to not be afraid to reach out to those connections you do have. You know, those friends that you had in primary school and in secondary school, you know, they were a connection for a reason. So if you're feeling worried about that, speaking to them is a massive thing. And knowing that there's no shame in getting help, there is no shame reaching out and talking to people, and understanding and managing your expectations is a massive thing. Obviously, if you go into uni expecting best time of your life, you're going to meet so much people, and you don't, that's going to make feeling lonely 10 times harder. If you manage those expectations just a little bit and understand that that may not happen, the reality is going to feel so much better if it does happen. It just takes a couple of people to talk about it. It just takes a few people to mention it to their student union, or a few people to mention it to higher up people like local MPs. They're there to support us, they're there to help their community. If they don't know that their community is struggling with that, they can't do anything about it at the end of the day, which is why at the minute it seems like students are getting the support that they need. But in the background, like these bigger organisations, they're trying their hardest, they just don't know what they want. And I also think like students don't 100% know what they want at the end of the day. You can't just magic them a friend So it's creating environments where they can socialise that are not pressured, and it's not, you're not there because you just don't have friends. It's like doing it subliminally and just